In 1987, Detective Ayakanno Marimuthu recalled his first impressions about a murder case that took place 3 years prior. He said, "I was disgusted and couldn't believe what he was telling me was the truth then. I listened with disbelief as he told me that 3 men had killed an Indian caretaker in an Orchard Road church in 1984 and had disposed of the body by chopping it up and cooking it with curry and rice." Director of the CID Assistant Commissioner, Jagjit Singh, said the case was one of the most unusual and bizarre murder cases handled and solved by the police. Unusual because the remains of the body have never been found and the deceased had not even been reported to have been murdered. Bizarre because of the manner in which the body was disposed of. The mystery of the caretaker Ayakanno Marimuthu's death made some people wonder if there ever was a murder in the first place. Ayakanno Marimuthu was a caretaker. His wife reported him missing from a trip to Genting Highlands in Malaysia. However, 3 years later, it was discovered that Ayakanno Marimuthu's wife band together with her family and murder him. The case remains unsolved until today. Ayakanno Marimuthu was born in 1950, as most of his information was not available online, hence we do not know who his parents are. Ayakanno Marimuthu was 38 years old, lived in a small house near Orchard Road Presbyterian Church with his 32-year-old wife, 2 daughters, and a son. He worked as a caretaker in charge of the Public Utilities Board-run holiday chalets, situated alongside Biggin Hill Road at Changi, Singapore. His wife Nagaratha Valley Ramia was also a caretaker. Ramia and Ayakanno Marimuthu were working in different locations. The duo were a hard-working couple. They were known by their neighbors as a caretaker family. Ayakanno Marimuthu was an alcoholic and had a hot temper, especially when he was under the influence of alcohol. During the day he was a good husband and good father, but at night he became aggressive when drunk. Domestic violence became the family norm. When he was drunk, he would be physically abusive towards his wife Ramia and his 3 kids. There were countless times Ramia could not stand the abuse and moved out of the house with her 3 children. However, Ayakanno Marimuthu would apologize after calming down and persuaded Ramia to return back to their house. Despite suffering from the abuse, Ramia would always forgive her husband. Ramia had 3 brothers, Rathakrishnana Ramaya, 31 years old, and Shanmugam Chandra, 28 years old. Both of her brothers were also caretakers. Rathakrishnana Ramaya was working at the Ministry of Finance's holiday chalets on Netheravon Road, and Shanmugam Chandra worked at Orchard Road Presbyterian Church. Ramia's 3rd brother, Balakrishna Ramia, 36 years old, worked as a butcher at a mutton store at the Commonwealth Avenue Market. Ramia's mother Kamachi Krishnasamy was a housewife, and her sister-in-law, Mary Mani, who was married to Rathakrishnana Ramaya, worked in a factory. Ramia was very close to her family. As such, when she could not stand Ayakanno Marimuthu's violence abuse, she would go to her family place. Due to the abuse, Ramia's family and her husband were not on good terms. On many occasions, Ramia's brothers would go to Ayakanno Marimuthu's house and confront him about his physical abuse toward his wife. The arguments would always turn into fights. On December 18, 1983, Ramia went to Ju Chiat police station and reported her husband's disappearance. She said her husband told her that he was off to the casinos at Genting Highlands in Malaysia on December 12 and he did not return home. Genting Highlands is a hill station located on the peak of Mount Ulu Kali in the Titiwangsa Mountains, Central Peninsular Malaysia at 1,800 meters elevation. Located in the state of Pahang. It was established by the late Chinese businessman Lim Gotong in 1965. The primary tourist attraction is Resorts World. Genting is an integrated hill resort which comprises hotels, shopping malls, theme parks, and casinos. with day temperature around 22 degrees Celsius or 72 Fahrenheit, and during the night, it usually drops to 12 degrees Celsius or 54 Fahrenheit. As Singapore and Malaysia are tropical countries with average daily temperature above 28 degrees Celsius or 82 Fahrenheit, Genting Highlands become a famous place for the local and Singapore tourists. Singapore did not have a casino until 2010, located only 401.8 kilometers away from Singapore. Genting Highlands also a famous place for Singaporean gamblers. Back to the case, when Ramia reported her husband's missing, due to the lack of foul play and evidence, a missing persons file was opened and Ayakanno Marimuthu was listed as a missing person by the police. Fast forward to 1987, 3 years later since Ayakanno Marimuthu was reported missing and still remains on the missing person list. It was January 8th, rain fell for the past few days and the sky was still covered by thick dark clouds. Detective Ayakanno was on duty and reviewing some case files at his office. One of his informants visited him at his office and revealed to him that when he was in a bar the night before, he overheard a man boasting about a murder. The victim was the caretaker of a holiday chalet named Ayakanno Marimuthu. He was brutally killed 3 years ago in December 1984. He said the man in the bar said that Ayakanno Marimuthu was butchered into pieces and cooked in curry before being disposed into rubbish bags. Shocked and unbelieved, Ayakanno was taken aback, skeptical of the story. But Ayakanno went ahead to bring up the story to his superiors in the Criminal Investigation Department. The senior officers in the CID were equally skeptical of the story. However, he instructed Ayakanno to launch an in-depth investigation into the case. Ayakanno soon found a missing persons report on Ayakanno Marimuthu lodged by his wife Ramia on December 18, 1984 at the Joo Chiat police station. In the report, Ramia stated that her husband had not returned from a trip to Genting Highlands in Malaysia, having left Singapore on December 12. Police found no cause for suspicion of foul play and recorded Ayakanno Marimuthu as a missing person. With his informant's story given credibility by Ayakanno Marimuthu's missing persons report, Ayakanno pressed on with his investigation. Ayakanno visited Ramia. At the time she was working at the Fuchao Methodist Church on Racecourse Road and her 3 teenage children lived with her. She confirmed the information she had given police in 1984 and said that her husband was still missing. She claimed that she had not heard from him or seen him in 3 years. Over the course of a 2-month investigation, Ayakanno spoke to about 30 people, but no one could say for sure what had happened to Ayakanno Marimuthu. He managed to gather background information on a number of suspects, and with background information about Ayakanno Marimuthu, Ayakanno learned about his complicated relationship with his in-laws. One of which was a butcher, his wife's brother, Balakrishna Ramia. Ayakanno also found out that Ayakanno Marimuthu had never left Singapore. Ayakanno Marimuthu was hardly getting by on his caretaker's salary, and a sudden trip seemed out of place. The trip was reportedly to a casino because he wanted to gamble, but from the people he spoke to, Ayakanno Marimuthu was an alcoholic, but he was never a gambler. Ayakanno found out that Ayakanno Marimuthu had borrowed $600 from his employer to pay for his kids' school books. Technically, Ayakanno Marimuthu was broke, so something didn't quite add up with the story that Ayakanno Marimuthu went for a gambling trip to Genting Highlands, where he did not even have money to pay for his children's school books. Ayakanno Marimuthu had applied for leave starting on December 21st, so why would he travel to Malaysia on December 12th, which was 10 days before his leave? This created suspicion, and Ayakanno was more convinced about his informant's story. On the 23rd of March, 1987, with enough evidence, the CID Special Investigation Section conducted an operation across several locations to detain suspects. The raids kicked off at 2 a.m., and 5 police teams arrived at different locations simultaneously. The locations were a flat in Jurong East, the caretaker's quarters at the Orchard Road Presbyterian Church, and holiday chalets on Netheravon Road. By 8 a.m., police had 6 suspects in custody. They were Ayakanno Marimuthu's wife, his mother-in-law, his 3 brothers-in-law, and his sister-in-law. However, all of them denied any knowledge of Ayakanno Marimuthu's murder and insisted that he left on his own accord, telling them he was going to Malaysia. Until March 25th, after 2 days of relentless interrogation, one of them cracked. Police never revealed who it was that decided to speak up. This person revealed the gruesome details of what happened to their missing relative. According to the suspect's revelation, Ayakanno Marimuthu was brought to the caretaker's quarters of the Presbyterian Church by the 3 brothers in the afternoon of December 12, 1984. There, Ayakanno Marimuthu was tied up and battered to death with an iron rod. His body was chopped up by Balakrishna. Together with curry powder, spices, and rice, Ayakanno Marimuthu's body parts were cooked into curry in a large aluminium pot of the type often used in Indian restaurants to cook nasi biryani, a popular Indian rice dish served with either chicken, mutton, or fish. Once his remains were disguised in the curry, including cracked pieces of skull and bones, they scooped it into black plastic bags and went about disposing it across town in various public trash cans. As the murder was happened 3 years ago, due to the time gap between the investigations and the time of murder, none of the rubbish bags were recovered. 4 days after the arrests, on March 27, 1987, Ramia and her 3 brothers Balakrishna, Ramaya, and Chandra were charged with the murder of Ayakanno Marimuthu, while her mother Krishnasamy, 54 years old, and sister-in-law Manue, 29 years old, were charged the following day with abetting the murder. The 6 were brought to court on June 6, 1987. The hearing lasted only 12 minutes. The prosecution found that there was insufficient evidence to proceed the case against them. Well, this is understandable, as the murder was already 3 years old when it was discovered. The investigation team was not able to recover any evidence. There was no body parts, no murder weapons, and the cooking pot believed to have been used in making the curry was never located. There were also no eyewitnesses who can corroborate the claims made by the suspects. Hence, leaving with no choice, District Judge Zainal Abidin gave the 6 suspects a discharge not amounting to an acquittal. It means they will not be prosecuted for that offense for the time being. However, in the future, if the police uncover fresh evidence against them, they can be charged again under the same offense. On the other hand, had the 6 been granted full acquittal, they cannot be charged again for the same offense. The prosecutor made a public statement, saying that they will continue to investigate the matter, and if there was further evidence they would be brought back to court to face trial. All 6 of them were released on the same day. Ramia's 3 brothers were later rearrested and detained at Changi Prison. They remained in Changi Prison under the Criminal Law of Temporary Provisions Act. They appealed their detention from the start, but were not freed until 4 years later. In June 1991, they were released unconditionally. After their release, the 6 suspects sued the Straits Times for defamation, contending that the newspaper's misleading language have framed them as murderers in a 1995 crime show titled Dr. Justice. However, the court dismissed the lawsuit in favor of the Straits Times. Until today, the case still remains unsolved and the 6 are walking free on the street in spite of the vivid details of the murder given. There are many theories about this case. One of them was that Ramia told the truth and Ayakanno Marimuthu did actually go to Malaysia and he disappeared there. But police did not find any record of Ayakanno Marimuthu leaving Singapore, hence this theory can be dismissed immediately. Another theory was the case was a hoax to just get media attention. Well, I am not sure about this theory. But I personally do not really accept this theory. There was also a theory that Ayakanno Marimuthu was in fact killed by his wife's brothers because he was an abusive husband to their sister. Well, to this day, the case still remains a mystery. No one knows what happened to Ayakanno Marimuthu, or do they? What do you think about this case? Leave your comments below and let me know your thoughts about this case. I would like to wrap up this case by creating awareness about family abuse. Family violence is a serious social problem, and it could lead to murder if it does not being treated at early stage. The World Health Organization estimates 1 in 3 of all women are subject to domestic violence at some point in their life. Domestic violence often occurs when the abuser believes that they are entitled to it, or that it is acceptable, justified, or unlikely to be reported. It may produce an intergenerational cycle of violence in children and other family members who may feel that such violence is acceptable or condoned. Many people do not recognize themselves as abusers or victims because they may consider their experiences as family conflicts that had gotten out of control. Lockdowns during the COVID-19 pandemic and its social and economic impacts have increased family violence cases. If you are the victim of domestic violence or you know anyone who is the victim, please seek help early. Everyone deserves a home that is safe and free from violence. I will stop here and hope to see you again in my next video. At this moment, stay safe and take care of yourself and your loved ones, and goodbye for now.